Final Fantasy XVI went gold on March 31st, meaning it's as good as ready to hit the shelves on June 22nd. So I want to go over everything we already know about the PS5 exclusive title in this Explore Before You Pre-Order, where I tell you the important info you need to know about a big release before it's out. So important to know is that you do not need any prior knowledge of any Final Fantasy game to enjoy 16. It will tell a new story with new characters in a brand new world. The story is set on the continent of Valisthea, which has a treasured resource called Mother Crystals that the varying factions are constantly at war over. Key in this war are the Dominants, people who can manifest the power and form of godlike creatures called icons. So these human weapons are used as a defense and threat against invading forces, effectively forcing the different factions of Valisthea into a cold war. And one of the victims of this cold war is Clive Rosfield, the protagonist of our story. We don't have all the details yet, but from what we know, Clive sets forth on a path of vengeance after losing his brother Joshua, who was also the dominant of Phoenix. We'll be following Clive through three major periods of his life: his teens, his 20s, and his 30s. Not sure how that will translate to the game exactly, but at least we get to follow our main character for a period of over 20 years, which leaves a lot of room for character growth and development, so really interesting. Clive's story will also lead us through many different locations, but the developers did stress that Final Fantasy XVI is not an open world RPG. Instead, it consists of several large areas that are connected through a world map. So think more in the style of God of War or Wonderlands, although there will be more traditional levels as well, like the castle section showcased in the preview session. These are called stages and will be more linear, but there are also a lot of open areas referred to as field areas by the devs that offer opportunities for exploration and side questing. Some of these areas will even be large enough for us to consider using a chocobo mount, and there is a lot of environmental variety too. We can see desert hamlets, lush jungles, and volcanic caverns with fantastical elements like a crystal mountain or an ancient ruin there to remind you you're playing a Final Fantasy game. There will also be a hub of sorts called the Hideaway, where you can return to visit merchants or pick up new side quests. There will be new stuff to see and do here after progressing through the story, including a blacksmith who can craft or upgrade items for you. Resources like this can be found in the open areas when exploring, but also drop from defeated monsters. Don't expect to go crafting full armor sets though, as we can see from a look at the gear system that you'll be equipping Clive with a weapon, a waist piece, a bracer, and then a selection of 3 accessories like rings or amulets. So likely the weapon being the only visible change on your actual character model, although there might be a different way of changing Clive's look that we don't know about yet. And by the way, now that I've mentioned rings, there are a couple of pretty special ones that effectively allow you to customize the difficulty of the game. These come into play when you select the story difficulty, one of the 2 available difficulties when you start the game. Instead of changing modifiers like incoming and outgoing damage, story mode gives you access to 5 rings that can make certain parts of gameplay a lot easier for you. There's one that allows you to pull off complex combos by simply pressing the square button repeatedly, one that will automatically make you drink a potion when you get to low health, and one that will make dodging enemy attacks a lot easier. From what I was able to gather, you're still able to find these rings in the normal mode, but on story they're all unlocked right at the start of the game. But keep in mind that these are regular rings, so you can only have 3 active at a time, and you'll need to choose between keeping these on or swapping them out for the other rings you earn while playing the game. One of these story mode rings also has an effect on your companion dog Torgal. To get the important stuff out of the way, yes, you can pet him and you can even give him a treat, but Torgal will also take care of you. There are a couple of commands you can give to your best boy, and one of them is to heal you. The other 2 are attack commands, Ravage and Sick, that you can mix in with your own regular combos. The ring I mentioned automates all of this for you, but without it equipped, you'll have to manually order Torgal to perform one of his special moves. You'll have other party members join you on parts of the adventure as well, but these will simply fight on their own and not follow any commands. Now, if you'd rather give yourself a bit more of a challenge and like competing, there is also an arcade mode which lets you replay stages with certain restrictions on your level and items, and with a scoring system in place. This is accessed through the Arete Stone, which you also find in the Hideaway Hub, but there are many more great features you can access through here. For starters, there's a customizable training arena called the Hall of Virtue, so you can practice your combos. Then there's the arcade mode that I just mentioned, but if you'd rather play through a stage again at your current power level, you can select stage replay and pick a level to play without any restrictions. And on the note of replayability, we also learned that there should be an extra difficulty mode unlocked after finishing the game once, which should be very similar to Final Fantasy VII Remake's hard mode. So Final Fantasy XVI is breaking a lot of new ground for the series, but nowhere is this more evident than in the combat system. Whereas previous entries have tried to mix up real-time and turn-based elements, like Final Fantasy VII Remake for instance, 16 will be a fully real-time character action game. Which means blocks, parries, aerial combos, gap closers, you name it. The game's combat director is Ryota Suzuki, who previously worked on Dragon's Dogma and Devil May Cry 5. And I have to say, the combat in FF16 is looking like the perfect blend between those two games. So let's go over how it works. You control protagonist Clive, and while you are sometimes joined by other party members, like I mentioned earlier, you won't be able to control them with the exception of your dog Torgal. Clive has some basic sword hits, but most of his moveset is determined by the currently active icon. Because Clive is able to manifest the powers of more than one icon, with each one giving him access to a completely new moveset. So for instance, each icon has their own ranged attack, which is a fireball for Phoenix or a blast of stone shards for Titan, as well as some especially powerful abilities that have their own cooldown. Your cooldowns for one moveset will continue to go down when changing to another form, so swapping between icon powers will be key to deal as much damage as possible. There's also this handy UI element that lets you keep track of all your cooldowns at the same time. Some of these special attacks also have a unique mechanic to them, like you being able to hold a button on Titan special moves and releasing it at the right moment to deal more damage. But the most interesting part is that each icon moveset also has their own utility move in combat. With the Fiery Phoenix equipped, Clive can teleport a short distance towards their target, whereas with the wind icon Garuda, you can actually pull an enemy towards you. Not all of them are mobility based though, as Titan's moveset gives you access to a block that can be turned into a parry and then counter attack if you time it correctly. You can have up to 3 of these icon movesets equipped at a time to freely swap between them. And while Phoenix, Garuda and Titan have been shown a lot in the preview footage, a recent gameplay clip also showed some moves from the icons Bahamut and Odin, and they're looking pretty badass too. Each icon comes with their own skill tree, so there's even a way to expand those individual movesets. Easy Allies were able to interview the development team, link to their preview will be in the video description, and they noted that the team really wanted to make sure that no one icon is more powerful than the others, as the point of the system is to let players find their own style. Previews have mentioned that there should be at least 8 different icon powers to unlock for Clive, and while we don't know exactly how we'll be doing that, I think that these giant icon fights might have something to do with it. Because during certain parts of the game, Clive will be able to transform into one of these colossal creatures himself to level the playing field. These icon battles look absolutely spectacular, and all of them are designed to feel really unique. Previewers were able to play a battle between Clive as the fiery demon Ifrit and the wind icon Garuda, which felt and looked like a wrestling match between the two massive monsters. But when fighting Titan, we can see Clive as Ifrit again, but this time much more mobile, even making up for the height difference with some aerial combos. There's even a short clip where you play as Phoenix, which looks more like an on-rail shooter as well. So a lot of variety in the bosses from the looks of it, because there will be regular bosses that you fight in Clive's human form as well, or even a fight as regular Clive against an icon. But even in human form, you have some great tools for dishing out extra damage. You have a limit break that's powered by this bar under your health to change into a more powerful form and deal extra damage on your attacks, which is very reminiscent of the Devil Trigger transformations in DMC, and it makes Clive look extra badass. Stronger enemies like bosses and mini bosses also have this yellow bar under their health called a will gauge. This will go down when they take damage, and when it reaches 0, the enemy is staggered, meaning they are stunned in place and will not attack back. All your attacks deal more damage in the stagger window, and the more you attack, the higher the multiplier will climb, up to a maximum of 150%. So yeah, for me the game is ticking a lot of boxes. Interesting story, flashy and fast combat, and beautiful areas to explore. And I can already tell these icon battles are going to be a highlight simply because of the scale and spectacle. It's honestly really impressive what Square managed to pull off here. If there's anything I missed in this explore before you pre-order video, let me know in the comments, and of course remember, there's no need to pre-order if you're still on the fence, you can simply wait for the reviews. Subscribe for more info on the biggest upcoming games, leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and if you want, you can check a roundup of all the big games still coming out this year. I will see you in the next one, goodbye.